And we're
All right,
live.
there it is. There it is. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Doing all right, man. How you doing?
Well, a little crazy, but things are good. I think for me this week, my goal is to obviously keep fighting the good fight and figuring out what people want inside a decent router, and
hmm
just talking through with end users and customers around some of the pricing things that we have. So I'll be doing a number of like interviews in the next like customer discovery interviews over the next couple of weeks, just trying to figure out what things are working, what things aren't working. And then lastly, I spent some time looking at our backup and restore features and just kind of augmenting that and setting that up and actually doing a commit to fix a couple of issues there. So I'll talk a little bit more
hmm
about that. But how about you, man? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I've been diving into the closed source world a little bit. Been doing mostly carrier infrastructure building, and we did a few upgrades that had to deal with dSIPRouter, so that was pretty interesting. It's good to see like some of the sticking points, and come back and iterate on those. Uh, it's some of the interesting things I think for the audience, looking at SBC signaling and how we present ourselves to different clients and how we handle um, different types of signaling. Because there's a lot of different ways that you can send an invite. There's a lot of different ways that you can keep a call alive, do keep alive. So some of those things that's what I've been working on recently.
Got you. Now, what like I guess you said a lot there. I guess the biggest I guess when you say there's a lot of different ways to send an invite, I'm always like, well, the spec says there's only really one way. I mean, there's a bunch of headers you can add to it and things of that nature, and there's provisional acts and things of that nature. Are you saying that I think you're saying that there's multiple ways to establish a call, not necessarily multiple ways to do an invite. Is that what you're saying? Like there's like, or what are you saying explicitly around that?
Yeah, yeah. So some of the things I was working on is we'd have clients come, they'd start a call without FTP, send a reinvite or an update that would change the STP, change your audio settings mid call. So things
Mm,
like that, making sure that that gets handled properly, our PM's aware of it. Um, One of the interesting ones was we had calls coming from SS7 over to SIP, and the clients were doing this older type of keep alive where they would send reinvites instead of options. So we usually see options nowadays, but there's still older clients that are out there doing this older type of method, and trying to support that as well. That's an interesting one to look through. Um, yeah, I
yeah.
got a couple horror stories actually from this week, but
Well, yeah. I mean, reinvites. And you're doing an upgrade this week, so did we handle it different in older versions of of like the 644 series or the 6 series versus the 7, or did we do something custom for that particular customer and it didn't like translate over to the new version of DSIP that we have?
yeah, so dSIPRouter handles that pretty well. This is actually on a closed source platform, an
Oh,
outbound
okay.
service that
Mm,
it's built out for one of the carriers we support. And yeah, so they're still using Camellia for that, but it's just not a open source service that we
solution.
built out for everybody. Yeah, so that one they had a lot of like weird clients that are connected. So you see a lot of like older style messaging in the dialer clients.
Got you. Okay. Got you.
hmm
Um, that makes sense. So like one of the things that I did this week was really sit back and say that because I had a customer come to me and say, hey, hey, around stir shaking and the way you're doing stir shaking, we kind of have, for everybody else that don't know, we have like the open source stir shaking module that comes with Camilio that we've incorporated in, and then we also have a module for doing stir shaking with a transnexus service and called Clear IP. And we've changed the pricing a little bit on this. Like for stir shaking, we've incorporated it into our core subscription model. Um, and with a little bit of bump, I think, in the price, I believe. And then for Transnexus, it is still a standalone module, and it's about $1,000 a year. And they were like asking, why aren't they priced the same? And I had to maybe think for a little bit, and we talked it out a little bit around this as a team as well. Is that at the end of the day, um, and what it made me think of this, being totally transparent, is like we got to do better at explicitly. I'm talking about myself. Is really doing better
Mhm.
with partnerships and going out and talk to the partners that we work with, and really getting like test environments. Make sure we're talking to these partners and making sure we have insight into their roadmap so that we ensure that we're supporting new features that they have inside of their services. And all those things cost money, right? Just to be able to just have somebody that focuses on that costs money. So I just basically we came to a conclusion that we got to keep the prices the way they are, because we are planning to get deeper into the ecosystem of our partners and better understand what they need and what things are coming in the future and things of that nature. So for me, this week has been a very interesting week around partnerships and mapping that to how customers perceive certain functionality and how it's priced. So it's been a very intriguing week for me. So
Yeah, it's always interesting to, once you start building those relationships, see some of the extra things that they're working on the side, and they may bring us in, to maybe the betas or, a closed alpha. I I would hope that in the future we'll get closer to those type of partnerships where they say, hey, you guys bring us a lot of customers, we bring customers of you, and these are the things that we're looking to like put out in the future. Um, and and then hey, can you support that? And we have a back and forth there instead of just this is what we got, and figure it out.
yeah. I mean, no, you're right, man. That's the way I think we need to approach it. The other thing that's kind of reared its ugly head, it's not really reared their ugly head, actually. It's actually, I think, a good thing, is really around OpenSIP support. So I had a few people, it's not overwhelming. There's a few people ask me and send me messages like, hey, can't wait till you support OpenSIPs, or when do you plan to support OpenSIPs? And so, for me, I look at a couple of things. I look at, like, number one, like we need to have dSIPRouter needs to be like decoupled from Camilio, like anyway, just because it'll make it easier for us to do our development cycles and things of that nature. But we're very tightly integrated with Camilio. We use the same schema that they use right now.
Mhm.
So it's, what I mean? So it's hard to kind of like decouple us from there. So I think it can be done, but it's not something that's going to be done overnight. I think it's gonna take some while, and especially since OpenSIPs, like, module names have changed and enhanced. Like, let's say, for example, like if we look at dispatcher, they don't have a dispatcher per se. Actually, they may in OpenSIPs. They name it load balancer in their world. So one, that's what actually, let's just do a quick search here. I think for OpenSIPs, it's I don't think they have a dispatcher. I think that was the old name, And I think they they still have dispatcher, but let's see here. That's 2.3. Here, let me go to the latest version, 3.4. I think they renamed it for some reason. Nope, they still have it. So dispatcher is still there, but they also have a module called load balancer. And I wonder, is this the same? It looks like dispatcher. But anyway, if they do have a dispatcher, that makes things a little bit easier. So I don't know. I mean, there's a couple of things that they did differently, like inside of good things, like inside of derouting and opensips, they actually have probing inside of it. So you actually can send options to the gateways. Like Camilio derouting does not have derouting doesn't have that.
It doesn't.
So
It does in the newer versions.
does it in the newer versions?
Yeah, I don't know when that was implemented, but that's one of the mod rooms.
Okay. Well, good. Enable keep, maybe it was enable keep alive or something like that. Yeah, it looks like
There's definitely
it has
some areas where they started taking different paths. You know, on OpenSips they started doing like a registrar a little bit differently on their module. I know that, but I haven't looked a ton at the OpenSips stuff. Quite a long time, to be honest. But I think it would be really good, nice to be able to have that option. But getting off the ground, that's we just picked, the one that was best supported, use the proxy platform that most people are using, and then in the future, we can come back and take that, make our own schema that is kind of decoupled from all of this, and then it can translate down to, hey, this the Camilio version, so translate it into that. You'll have like a layer of abstraction between the platforms. So yeah, the idea would be like, we want to route it a specific way, or we want to represent your host, your carrier groups, your authentication. We can do that in an abstract method and then kind of go platform specific. But yeah, I mean, decoupling, that would be a long effort. It's not a short.
Yeah, I mean, basically there need to be a, like you said, almost like a translation layer, that translates it. Well, I mean, the way I was thinking about it is that if we could keep it the same, but I don't know if it's worth it because the schemas and all that good stuff, I'm not sure. Because right now, for those who don't know, we keep a lot of the metadata for dSIPRouter right inside of the Camilio schema. So like inside the tables, right? So if those tables were there in opensips, maybe it'll work. I don't know. One day we'll try it. We'll just install opensips and then change the pointer, or I don't know, use symbolic links or something to change it and see what happens when you run it. It'll be interesting to see what the outcome would be. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
it's
one of the
nice to
things that,
have. At the end of the
yeah.
day, we're always thinking, what is the cost of that, and what is the benefit, right? So the benefit's
Yep.
not outweighing the cost of development. It's kind of a mute point.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of other things we can do right now, and I think I think also is that I think from a I think the Camilio community has been really supportive of the product as well. So I think that's the other thing that kind of says, let's not even like focus too much on that. Would it open us up to a whole new set of people? Maybe. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know enough about that, the OpenSips community. So that made me think like maybe I need to go talk to people again and see what people really need. But I don't know. That's the thing. But I do know that like some things in Camilio are still complicated, or just Camilio and opensips is complicated. Clustering is something that obviously I've been trying to work on forever. I just got to find some time to do. And I think that is probably a bigger issue that people would see value in. It's just being able to a cluster. Because I was messing with Rabbit and MQ this week, and setting up a cluster in RabbitMQ is fairly simplistic. You just kind of say, here goes the other nodes, and here goes a key, and it just kind of happens. So I think, definitely, I think clustering is one of those things where people will see a lot of value. But here goes the other thing.
Okay.
The other thing is that, would it be valuable if people are able to install Camilio by themselves or whatever? And because I think this is the cycle. This is what I think what happens here. And I need to validate this. I think people will be like, hey, I'm going to learn Camilio. And they go off and they install Camilio. And then they start trying to get a call routed through Camilio. And they be like, holy crap, this is a huge learning curve. But they have Camilio installed.
Mm-hmm.
They may even have RDP engine installed. But it would be great if they could install dSIPRouter, just the UI portion. We recognize that, Camilio is already installed. RTP engine is installed, not needed, but it's there. And then it automatically creates the Camilio config and puts it into the proper directory and set it up. So that may be a bigger thing than anything else, because I think sometimes people might get overwhelmed by the fact that dSIPRouter has all these things already built in. So maybe, because right now we have, for those who don't know, we have a dSIPRouter install that just will install dSIP, but it, obviously it requires, MySQL, and it requires Camilio schema to be installed. So I don't know. I'm just thinking through some of the things I ran into this week. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so the compartmentalizing of the different services, we started working on that. Actually had a few commits last week on that as well. It's just a big effort, going from a monolithic service or regular services to also supporting microservices, so Docker and these different things. And that's kind of what you need, is to have everything compartmentalized so that it's just a piece and you spin that up as a container. Yeah, it's just it's time and money. I don't know. It's the development effort on that is pretty big, but I think we're just going to keep on chipping away at that one, because Docker support is going to be pretty important, or just container support in general, and making the pieces more maintainable. It kind of does make it that we have to put everything in its own little bucket, right? That makes it easier for people to come in and be like, I'm going to work on this little piece, and it doesn't matter if I change that, because it's not going to break, the Camilio support or the MySQL setup, whatever other services and configs that we have in there. So I think it's going to be important. It's I don't know if it's not going to be required for any of the stuff we're doing right now, but when we want to have that container support, it will be required.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think getting ready for I think the microservices world is already here. We just been fighting it with our monolithic approach, and I think that people still are in the mindset that running stuff on either bare metal or in a virtualized world without Docker or Kubernetes as an orchestrator is the preferred mechanism. But I think as compute gets cheaper, compute gets faster, OSs get more stable, microservices type of support and capability are built into the OS. I think it's going to become just natural that the dSIPRouter UI at least will need to be able to run by itself. I don't think we're that far off, really. I think that it's just a matter of like, 'cause we already had Dockerized it a while ago. The problem is that we don't have like external ways like to define the database and things of that nature, which I think we can figure that out pretty quickly. But I mean, it's just again, nobody's knocking on our door and saying, "Hey, if you do this, there's a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow," uh,
Yeah,
and nobody
exactly.
and nobody's saying, "Hey, we're not going to use you if you don't have Docker support." So to me, and I think to you, those are pretty big things that need to kind of happen in order for us to really put focus on it, because there's so many other things um, that need focus. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah. I think we do have to stay pretty focused on the things that will get us more. Uh, I don't know how to word it, but like things that are going to get us more out of it. That are going to give people a better experience, like right now. Like we fix the little things in the GUI, or we add, get some of the more feature-rich things in the API as well. Upgrading, there's some things, some like sharp edges there as well. I think immediately we'll get, people happier with the product. Whereas containerizing, you know, we might see some people start to utilize that, and it's a long effort. Yeah, I think there's definitely things that we want to focus on before we start looking at these other like big development efforts. Kind of improving all
yeah,
the features that we have there, basically, instead of following the feature creep, going back and saying, wait a minute, which things do we not really need, or which things can we improve on, right?
yeah, I think that's the way we need to approach it, because there's a lot of stuff that we could say that we need, but I don't think that a lot of these things are going to really move the needle in regards to what people want. But again, yeah, I think a lot of it has to go back to is just talking to people and getting people to understand, or having people help us understand, um, what what's their like main, you know, goal in the next X number of months. 'Cause we want to make sure that we at least help people get to their original goal, or whatever their goal is, and make sure they're able to deploy dSIPRouter and it works like necessary, and then coming back in, like you said, and just tuning it up. Um, like, speaking
Yeah,
of
it is
that,
interesting how we started with development. We did it all on business cases, right? But we
right.
didn't have, then we started kind of trying to bring it back and say, okay, how can we unify all these different business cases? How can we make these features all fit together? I think there's got to be kind of a little bit of both of those. It can't just be like what we think is going to be best, and like that's going to be how we choose the features that come in. I think it's also got to be partly business, uh, based on what the business use cases need to be, but not completely on that, because it would just be a bunch of different features all slammed together, right? You got to kind of unify it, roadmap it out, basically.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that um you know we're still trying to struggle with a little bit, because you know there's so many different you know carriers and so many different um systems that we interoperate with from a carrier perspective. um so
Or
it's
even types of customers, right? Your
right.
large carriers, or your tier 2 providers, like they're going to have way different use cases, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's I think that's the problem. We do have a lot of different different use cases that either from a partner perspective or a customer perspective that we're trying to solve for. Because if you really think about it, like dSIPRouter has so many different use cases. Usually most proxies probably don't handle these many different use cases. They're usually like, they'll have like maybe a customer has one or two use cases that they're trying to use a proxy for, but we kind of support all these. And that's another thing that I think is difficult. Um, um, I think we just have to like, I don't know, maybe on the way we do deployment models, we just may need to explain people that you may need a cluster of dSIPRouter instances for just doing pass through. You may need a set of dSIPRouter instances just for doing MS Teams. I don't know. I think a lot of times what gets I think people are not able to scale up dSIPRouter appropriately because they're trying to solve so many different use cases. That isn't their problem per se. It's like really on us to kind of say, what is the best practice for deploying dSIPRouter and into what use case and how it should look. So I think that's a
Yeah,
thing we have to look at some point.
or maintaining those configs. Because I mean, we've thought about how we're going to split up the routing configs before, and do we want to maintain like, oh, this is the MSC feature, this is the load balancing feature, right? Like that would make it very maintainable. But then, what if you want to mix and match those? Or yeah, it's a little difficult to figure out what the best format for that is. Right now, we just have a monolithic, massive routing config, but with a bunch of if-defs. So at least there's some performance in there where they can turn the features on and off. But yeah, it's definitely not easy to maintain. That's for sure. Online,
Yeah, I mean that's
3,700, right?
Right. Yeah, I think there's better ways that we can do it. And I think we will look at, some of these other ways on how to like push features down into dSIPRouter. I mean, it's because to your point, like really, you know, if we really go back to how like free PPX was set up, and it had all these different files that kind of get added and extended into it. I think that there's ways that we could come up with an extension framework and kind of say, all right, if you're doing this, then use this file. We do a little bit of that with stir shaking. We do a little bit of that, but like if we really sit back and think through it, we probably can split up and minimize regressions a little bit because some of the logic would be in different files. So we wouldn't have to like go and worry about breaking something because everything's one big monolithic Camilio config. But I don't know. It's something that again, like we need to probably think through, but it's
I think the nice thing about that
critical.
also is that
Mhm.
most people are only using it for that use case, right? So people are routing with MS Teams, it's just an SBC for that anyways. They don't really need the other features usually. So we could definitely get more performance there, make it easier to maintain. I don't know. We'll have to think on it a little bit more, see if there's any other downsides there. I'm sure it has some downsides putting it up that much.
Yeah. And I think that also, I mean, there's so many different things we can do. I mean, we can, at some point, I would love to see dSIPRouter part of the distribution, right? That's why I think having it, dSIPRouter be standalone by itself will open us up to being able to like say, all right, let's install dSIPRouter, app, install dSIPRouter, and it installs, dSIPRouter, and it just, you just point it to your Chameleon instance and the MySQL instance, and it goes off and it does its thing and installs the proper tables and all that good stuff. But that's a vision. That's a vision. At some point we'll get there, but for right
need more
now, I
maintainers
think
for that, though. You gotta have more people contributing.
Yeah, we need a lot more people contributing to that because it takes a lot more energy to do that. And honestly, I think that so this dSIPRouter is a very opinionated way to install and manage Chameleon. I almost think like sometimes I'm thinking like are we overly opinionated? But I think that you kind of need to be in order to like distill down all of the noise out of the Chameleon ecosystem because there's like 200 plus modules. So you start, sure, can one go and piece all these things together? But it takes a lot of time. You got to know like the pitfalls of two modules working together or not working together very well. But I still think there's value there. Yeah, I still think there's value there. All right. Well, we're up at our 30 minutes is what we kind of do. And, people got things to do and like Sam. So I guess what's the thing that you want to leave people with for this week, Tyler?
So the thing I want to leave you guys with is, all these other projects that we're working on the side. We're building out carrier infrastructure and we're building other apps as well. All these things that we're even if it's something that doesn't make it into the open source ecosystem, remember that you can take those lessons learned there and bring it into your open source communities as well. So don't think of try to take those opportunities and bring them back to your own open source communities, because it's definitely going to benefit you there as well. A lot of lessons to be learned. What about you, Mac? Any final words for this stream?
No, not really. I think no final words per se, but definitely I would say go and check out dSIPRouter if you haven't. Give us feedback. Better yet, become a committer. Come start doing some PRs, and it don't have to be like hardcore writing code. It could just simply be documentation. It could simply be adding a use case to the documentation. It could just giving us feedback on the UI, what works, won't work, don't work. I mean, we have features that we've built a long time ago that we just haven't touched in a while, so that just we don't have test coverage for. So just anything you can do to help us to make this a better experience for everyone, I think I know, not even think it, we truly appreciate it. So that's it for me.
All right, signing off, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Take care.